So let's talk targets and predictions for England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland. I will be talking about other nations at other times. Hopefully I've got an exciting collaboration coming up talking about the All Blacks this November. But let's get into those 4 nations. So I've got the list of fixtures here, plus a couple of other notable fixtures, France, South Africa and France, Australia. And firstly, this is across the November window, but actually some of these games lie outside the window. So I thought I'd just search on World Rugby and get the calendar saying when the window is, but it's incredibly hard to find definitive documents. I don't know why it should be so hard. Always when you search about rules and bits and pieces about World Rugby and regulations, it's just so hard to find. But basically, week 1 is outside the window, and maybe that's a reason why Wales aren't playing one of their big games there. And I think a big part of that is they wouldn't get released from English clubs for their stars to come over, like Thomas Williams, who you would need. Scotland, it's the same for them. I don't think they'll get released from English clubs as well, but they're playing USA in week 1, so I think that is no mistake there. They're playing an easier side where they don't need all their best players. Finn Russell would be a good example. England and Ireland are slightly different, of course. They have a rule where you can't play for your nation unless you play in the nation. So maybe that's a pro for having that rule. So they kind of can play outside the window. So that's how the fixtures lie. Let's talk about England to start with. Talk about where I think they're going to go in these fixtures. Starting off with Australia, then Fiji, New Zealand, Argentina. I really like the order. I think it's about right. We'll talk about some of the other nations maybe having too hard or too easy a fixture list, because fixture lists are important. Starting with Australia, really exciting, starting with a boom. You know, they're a really good team, but they are beatable as well. It's going to be exciting for sure. England obviously have played in the summer, but not with their Lion Star, so there's going to be a little bit of bedding in there, so Australia could catch them cold, of course, but at home and with the firepower England have, I do think they'll win this one, actually. I'm kind of bullish on England, actually, over these November internationals. I think the selection of the squad was quite exciting. If they play well, if they play to their potential, I think they will beat Australia, but it could be a really, really good game. We've seen England add another member of coaching staff to their squad, Byron McGuigan, and thinking he'd go in as a defence coach. But then I was remembering, of course, we've had Wigglesworth move from attack to defence, so they weren't going to displace him again. So McGuigan's kind of helping out with contact and things like that. But a bit weird that Wigglesworth went from attack to defence, and then they've hired a specialist defence coach. So pretty strange stuff there. Then we see England take on Fiji, and there probably will be some rotation here because it is 4 games in a row. But essentially, England are going to be trying to get their best team ready for New Zealand, or work out their best team. Not that Fiji will be pushovers, not at all. They are a horror to play against. Some of the most talented players in the world. No, that is true, but also they've now got their professional team, Fijian Drua, in Fiji playing in Super Rugby, so they should have a much better coherent coordination in their team. Set piece should be better, kicking strategy, all that sort of thing. So that's a real one to worry about, but England should win that. And that all leads up to what is undoubtedly the showpiece game, England-New Zealand. The All Blacks going to Twickenham. It's going to be fantastic. England will have had their warm-ups. They should be at top gear. New Zealand, it's the end of a long year for them. They've been playing pretty well. We'll talk about New Zealand, like I said, later in the week. But that one could go either way, absolutely. I'd probably put New Zealand as favourites because they're New Zealand, they're higher in the rankings. But I'm sure that is the one that Borthwick really wants. If they drop one of the other games but beat New Zealand, I think they'd definitely take that. England, Argentina, that's at the end. That's a tough one for both teams. They're going to be absolutely battered. England hopefully should have enough depth if they need to cover injuries and that sort of thing to win that, hopefully. But that's another really good game to finish on. So they could win 4, but I think a minimum target would be 3. Either winning all 3 games apart from New Zealand would be okay as long as they were competitive, but if they can beat New Zealand and win at least 2 of the others, I think that's pretty good too. So minimum target 3 wins, but let me know what you would do. Then let's talk about Ireland. They've got a few injuries, Joe McCarthy for example, Keenan, though they might not be at full strength, plus they haven't played for a while, New Zealand have, and they go to Chicago, so they're not at home. That's a really tricky first fixture. I can see Ireland losing that game. Alternatively, they could slip into their system straight away and have a stormer. They've done that before, but I'm probably just tipping New Zealand there, being a neutral venue, if you like. So, and it's Ireland's first game, so I might say New Zealand, but could go either way. But that's a tricky one to start with. They're kind of doing it for money, essentially. They're going to America not because it's best for them to win or to develop. It's to gain fans and make a load of money and that sort of thing. So not overly enthused with that being the first game, but it's a commercial decision. Now, if they win that first game and everything's hunky-dory, they could rotate against Japan and go again against Australia, then South Africa. But it's a tricky one. If they lose that first game, do they play their first choice team again against Japan, then against Ireland, and they're going to have to play their first choice team against South Africa? So it's a really tricky one of how they rotate their squad. Not really liking that order. I think they're going to have to try and rest a few players and rotate in Japan and then build into Australia, and then the massive one at the end, South Africa. What's their minimum target? Well, I think it's 3 wins as well, but this is, to me, a tougher fixture list than the English fixture list. So they could well win 2, maybe Japan and Australia in the middle, and lose the start and the end. So even though it's a minimum 3, I wouldn't be surprised with a 2. But let me know, Ireland fans, if you think they should be going for all 4 or what will happen. But that's quite a tough one. In a bit of a contrast to Scotland. Now, Scotland and Wales are quite interesting because I've been doing this over the years and I've been seeing the fixture list they tend to go for, and Scotland do tend to plan easier fixtures or more development fixtures. I think it's completely fair. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. They just do. And Wales plan much harder fixtures. They go for the big ones traditionally. This summer, not so much. They went to Japan. It was the right call. But normally they go to somewhere incredibly hard in the summer and have hard November internationals as well. Scotland, yeah, more development, like I said, outside the international window. So I think that's why they're playing USA, and then we'll see all their stars come in for that New Zealand game. So not the best preparation if, you haven't got all your players available, Finn Russell, etc. So not the best, but, you don't want to start with New Zealand like Ireland are doing. That big one is second. So I think they will win against USA. I don't think that's a problem there. But I think they will struggle against New Zealand for that reason. They won't have played their best team beforehand in week 1. So I think they probably lose that one and then probably peak for Argentina and maybe win that one, and I think they'll beat Tonga as well. So minimum target, I think it's 3, USA, Argentina, Tonga. I think they will expect to win. New Zealand, maybe a bit of a shot to nothing, but minimum target again, 3 wins. And then finally on to Wales. What are their targets? It's a tricky one because, of course, they're coming off the back of a lean period. They got that 1 win against Japan to at least break their losing duck. And they do have Japan again second. At home, Wales will absolutely target to win that one. They should win that one. I've been pretty bullish about their squad being a bit better, actually, than it has been. So, there is some hope there, but these guys haven't played together under Steve Tandy. It's completely new. Starting against Argentina is a toughie. Argentina are going to be gunning for that one to get a big win. And Argentina, we've seen from the Rugby Championship, are a very good side. So that's going to be tough. Wales probably will have to rely on some emotion there to win that one, being their first game together. I probably would just about tip Argentina, but I could see Wales doing it. They should win against Japan, so it's a tricky one. Either they go in winning 1 or 2 games, I think, against those 2, and then it's New Zealand and South Africa, which are complete shots in the dark. If they win any of those 2, it's not a miracle, but it's almost a miracle. So I don't think they win the last 2. So I think their success probably all rides on that first game. If they lose it and they only win against Japan, I think you'd say it's a bit of a failure. I think 2 wins is what they want, the first 2, and then be competitive for the last 2 at least. So big November for Wales. Anyway, guys, those are my targets. Those are my predictions for the Autumn Internationals, for the Nations Series, whatever you want to call it, coming up in November for those 4 nations. Please let me know what yours would be and your predictions and targets for all the other nations as well. Love to hear what you think as always. If you like these sorts of videos, a like, a subscribe would be fantastic. And I'll catch you next time.